Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever truly paused to appreciate the incredible, silent architects of our world? We're talking, of course, about plants. They're everywhere, often taken for granted. Um, but their world is just so intricate, vital, and absolutely astonishing. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into the very essence of botany, venturing into the incredible life of plants.
It's really remarkable how botany connects so many different scientific disciplines. It's far more than just, what you see in a garden. We delve into chemistry, pathology, microbiology, genetic engineering, economic botany, even forensic botany, which uses plant evidence to solve crimes. We've gathered a rich tapestry of information today to uncover their secrets, from their fundamental nature to their complex inner workings.
Right. Our mission for you today is to provide those aha moments, kind of cutting through vast amounts of information to deliver truly captivating insights. You'll walk away understanding not just what plants are, but why they are so incredibly vital to everything we know, every breath you take, really, and every meal you eat.
Exactly. We'll explore everything from the astonishing variety of life on Earth to the tiny, complex machinery within a plant cell, how plants grow and reproduce, and the remarkable adaptations that allow them to thrive across our planet. We often overlook them, but these quiet giants underpin almost all life, and understanding them is, it's crucial.
So let's start big. When we talk about the tapestry of life, we're truly exploring what biodiversity actually means. It's much more than just the number of different plant or animal species out there, isn't it?
Precisely. Biodiversity encompasses the variety of biological life across multiple scales. It includes species diversity, of course, but also the diversity of genes within those species and the differences in the ecosystems where those species live. It's truly multi-scale. On Earth, current estimates suggest there are anywhere from 6 to 29 million species of living organisms inhabiting various environments.
Wow, 6 to 29 million. That's an enormous range. And we've only scientifically identified a small fraction of them so far, correct?
That's right. Only about 2.5 million species of living organisms have been given scientific names to date. Out of those, over 1.4 million are animal species, with insects alone accounting for 740,000. For plants, including fungi, algae, mosses, and higher plants, we've identified over 350,000 species. So as you can see, a vast and rich biological world still awaits continuous discovery.
It's mind-boggling how much is still out there, yet what we do know already provides critical ecosystem services that we often take for granted. Think about your morning coffee or the fresh fruit you enjoy. That's biodiversity in action. We're talking about essential processes like pollination, which many flowering plants depend on. In fact, 30% of human crops are completely reliant on animal pollinators. Beyond that, biodiversity supports seed dispersal, water purification, nutrient cycling, climate regulation, and even the control of agricultural pests.
And this isn't just about environmental health. It's about our direct human reliance on these diverse life forms. Biodiversity fulfills our most basic needs: water, food, fuel, and medicine. A significant portion of the global population still relies on plants and animals as primary sources of medicine. In the United States alone, a striking 57% of the 150 most prescribed drugs originated from natural biodiversity. This highlights a crucial point. What are the implications of biodiversity loss for future medicine and human well-being, especially as we continue to seek new cures and treatments?
That's a really sobering thought. It's clear this concept has grown significantly in importance, moving beyond scientific discussions into a much broader global conversation. The term biodiversity itself was initially used more in political contexts than scientific ones, and the United Nations has played a huge role in bringing sustainability efforts to the forefront.
Absolutely. These international summits truly underscore a growing global recognition of our interconnectedness with nature and the urgent need for conservation. We saw the International Conference on Human Environment in Stockholm back in 1972 with the powerful mission Only One Earth. Then came the Conference on Environment in Nairobi in 1982, followed by the landmark Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, which focused on our common future. And then another World Summit in Johannesburg in 2002. The consistent message across all these gatherings has been the importance of biodiversity and its conservation for safeguarding a sustainable Earth.
Okay, so when we discuss biodiversity, it's not a single uniform concept. There are different types, scales, and ways to measure it.
Indeed, there are several distinct types, each reflecting the variety of species, genes, and resources within an area. First, there's species diversity, which refers to the variety of species in an ecosystem. Some ecosystems might naturally contain more species or even be dominated by just one. However, generally, a greater number of species can help an ecosystem recover more effectively from ecological threats.
And beyond just individual species, there's the broader ecological context, right? That ecosystem level.
Yes, that brings us to ecosystem diversity. A particular region might contain one or more different ecosystems. For example, large deserts or oceans typically represent regions with lower ecological diversity. In contrast, a region featuring mountains, forests, lakes, and grasslands will exhibit higher biodiversity, providing a wider array of resources that help native species adapt and thrive. Then we have functional diversity, which describes how various species within an ecosystem behave to obtain energy through food and utilize natural resources in different ways. A well-developed species ecosystem typically demonstrates high functional diversity because it includes many species with varied behaviors and roles.
And finally, the diversity within a single species itself, that genetic level.
That's genetic diversity. This refers to how closely related members of one species are within an ecosystem. If all individuals of a species have very similar genes, they possess low genetic diversity, which can pose a significant threat to their population's resilience. Conversely, an ecosystem supporting a species with high genetic diversity is better equipped to survive and adapt to changing environments. Understanding these different types of diversity is crucial for designing more robust conservation strategies, especially, in the face of challenges like climate change.
Okay, let's now shift from the broad strokes of biodiversity to the core of our deep dive, the plant kingdom itself. Historically, plants were simply identified as organisms that didn't move, right? Aristotle, for instance, famously distinguished them from fauna creatures that transport themselves.
That's absolutely correct. And later, Linnaeus, with his revolutionary system of contemporary cataloging, established the fundamental binary division of Plantae and Animalia. The plant kingdom, or Plantae, encompasses what are broadly known as green plants, largely due to their chlorophyll content. These are multicellular organisms that produce their own food through photosynthesis. They range in size from microscopic forms to towering trees and are found across virtually all environments, on land, in freshwater, and in saltwater.
It's amazing how that simple observation about not moving laid the groundwork for such complex biological classification. And these plants have been around for an incredibly long time.
Oh, an incredibly long time. Plants have existed on Earth for, heaps of an age, evolving to inhabit nearly every corner of the globe. There are approximately 2 million known classes of plant life currently recognized. All these organisms are multicellular and eukaryotic, sharing fundamental characteristics such as chlorophyll A and B, and carotenoids, pigments that are essential for converting sunlight into the chemical energy vital for life. It's fascinating how such a basic distinction ultimately led to our comprehensive understanding of the plant kingdom's shared traits and evolutionary journey.
So how do botanists categorize this vast and ancient kingdom? What are its primary divisions?
Well, all plant life, belonging to countless groups, is classified under the kingdom Plantae. This kingdom is further divided into two main subkingdoms, cryptogams and phanerogam.
Cryptogam sounds intriguing. What does that name imply? Concealed something.
Exactly. Cryptogams are the flowerless, non-flowering, and non-seed-producing plants. The name cryptogam literally means concealed reproduction or concealed imitation in some sources, referring to the fact that they do not form seeds, or kernels, as some sources put it. Therefore, cryptogams represent the non-seed-bearing plants. They are sometimes also referred to as diphytic, inferior plants, or even microorganism plants.
Okay, and within cryptogams, there are further subdivisions.
Yes, three main divisions. The first is thallophytes, which are the most, embryonic and largest division of cryptogams. Their plant body isn't distinguished into true roots, stems, and leaves. Such an undifferentiated plant body is called a thalloid. Thallophytes can be either unicellular or multicellular.
And thallophytes themselves have two primary groups, algae and fungi.
Correct. The first is algae. These are chlorophyll-bearing, thalloid autotrophic organisms found chiefly in marine environments, but also on soggy pebbles, territories, and planks. They can be unicellular and even form lichens in association with toadstools or fungi. Speargyra is a common example of algae. The second group is fungi. These are achlorophyllous, meaning non-green, and heterotrophic thallophytes. They live as saprophytes, absorbing nutrients from dead organic matter, or form lichens with algae. Some fungi mature adjacent to vascular plant ancestries, forming mycorrhiza, a symbiotic relationship. Rhizopus is an example of fungi.
Right. What comes next in the cryptogam lineage, moving towards more complexity?
Next are bryophytes. These are also achlorophyllous, autotrophic, embryophytic, but importantly atracheophytic cryptogams, meaning they lack true vascular tissue. You typically find them on saturated and dappled dwellings. They are aptly nicknamed amphibians of the plant kingdom because they are reliant on water for reproduction. Funerals given as an example.
And then we see the first hint of more advanced features in the next group. Vascular tissue appears.
That leads to pteridophytes. These are chlorophyllous, autotrophic, embryophytic, and crucially, tracheophytic cryptogams. The key defining characteristic here is tracheophytic. They are non-flowering plants that possess vascular tissues. This is why they're often called vascular cryptogams. Peters is cited as an example here. This step-by-step evolution, from simple phalloid bodies to the emergence of specialized vascular tissues, marks a pivotal moment in plant history, allowing them to grow taller and conquer new environments.
So that covers the concealed reproduction plants. What's the other major subkingdom representing the more visible seed-bearing plants?
That would be phanerogams. These are blossom-comporting, kernel-fabricating, or seed-bearing, and tracheophytic vascular plants. They represent the most innovative plants, evolutionarily speaking. They possess well-defined ancestries, roots, twigs, stems, verdures, leaves, and buds. This subkingdom is unified under a solitary division, spermatophyte.
And within phanerogams, we have two large familiar groups, gymnosperms and angiosperms.
Exactly. Gymnosperms are phanerogams, or spermatophytes, whose seeds are not enclosed within a fruit or drupe fence, as some sources phrase it. This means their seeds are uncovered, or naked. They were the first plants to obligate pips, or seeds. They do not produce true flowers, and their seeds ripen on apparent procreative edifices, like pine cones. Conifers and cycads are key examples.
And angiosperms are the ones we probably see most frequently in our daily lives, correct? The flowering plants.
Absolutely. Angiosperms are often called the acme plants because their pips, or seeds, are encircled by drupes or fruits. They are vascular seed plants in which the ovule is pollinated and then matures into a seed within a fenced, echoing ovary. This ovary is usually walled within a flower, which comprises the male and or female procreative tissues. Berries, or fruits, are the resultant structures from the maturation of these bloomy tissues.
Right. The evolution of seeds and then fruits completely transformed the plant world, allowing for greater protection and dispersal. That's why angiosperms dominate so many ecosystems today. Are angiosperms further divided?
Yes, into two major lessons, or classes. Dicotyledons, commonly known as dicots, and monocotyledons, or monocots. Dicots possess two cotyledons in their pits, or seeds. These are the embryonic leaves. Their bud fragments, or floral parts, typically occur in sets of 4 or 5. Their vascular bales, or bundles, are arranged in concentric spheres. And their ancestries, or roots, usually cultivate from the sweeping of the emergent seed. Examples given in some sources, potentially needing clarification, include maize and sorghum, though these are typically considered monocots. We'll speak to the source material here.
Okay, interesting point about maize and sorghum there. And monocots, how do they differ?
Monocots, or monocotyledons, have just one cotyledon. They comprise prevalent and familiar collections like lilies, orchids, agaves, palms, and grasses. They show diverse morphology, from miniature duckweeds to huge honors and uphill creepers. Their roots are generally adventitious, meaning they breed from curtails, stems, or other plant measures, not just the embryonic root.
So, to summarize all of this diversity, what are the overall defining features that unite pretty much all plants?
These are the foundational traits that allow plants to uniquely capture energy and form the base of almost all food webs. First, their cell ramparts obligate bran, that is, they contain cellulose. Second, they possess chlorophyll tints and chloroplasts for photosynthesis of the green dye. Third, circa or most, plants are leech-like, meaning autotrophic. They let go bare course of photosynthesis, they produce their own food. Fourth, somatic facsimile, or asexual reproduction, is mutual or common. Hitherto corporal-foe sexual reproduction is plausible or also possible. Finally, they exhibit mean tacit mounting and recurrence of cronies, that's indeterminate growth and recurring units like leaves.
Okay, great overview. Let's now zoom right into the most fundamental level, the plant cell. We know animal and plant cells share some common topographies: nucleus, cytoplasm, cell membrane, mitochondria, ribosome. But what makes a plant cell uniquely a plant cell?
Right. The most vital idiosyncratic edifice, or unique structure, is the cell wall outside the cell membrane. It forms the outer liner. This cell wall is chiefly cellulose and provides crucial support and inflexibility. Unlike animals, this foundational difference dictates so much about plant structure and how they interact with their environment. Plant cells are also eukaryotic, meaning their DNA is fenced within the nucleus. They contain many membrane-bound organelles with vague or rather specific functions for endurance and customary maneuver, like fabricating hormones, enzymes, and carrying out metabolic activities.
So the cell wall is a key differentiator. What other distinctive features stand out in a plant cell? Things like plastids.
Exactly. Plant cells uniquely contain structures like plastids, which are involved in the stowing or storage of plant harvests or products, and chloroplasts, a type of plastid, which aid in photosynthesis to harvest food. Also vacuoles, which are marine-filled, or rather water-filled, membrane-bound sacs that provision beneficial constituents, store waste, and maintain pressure.
You can truly think of a plant cell as a highly specialized miniature factory, with each part playing a critical role. What are some of these specific cell types and their specialized roles again?
Plants have a variety of specialized cells. Some cells are primarily involved in assembly or stockpiling of organic molecules, while others are specialized for nutrient transference throughout the plant. These include parenchyma, colentema, sclerenchyma, water steering cells, xylem, and food-conducting cells, phloem, each performing confident or specific roles.
Okay, let's break down the parts of a plant cell in more detail, exploring their structure and utility, starting with that crucial cell wall.
Of course. At the outmost is the cell wall, a rigid covering, a prominent feature. It is made of cellulose, pectin, glycoprotein, hemicelluloses, and sometimes lignin. It typically has 3 coatings or layers: the main cell partition or primary wall, the secondary cell wall, and the middle lamella connecting adjacent cells. It gives rigidity, strength, and protection against automatic, or rather mechanical pressure and disease. Just inside that is the cell membrane, or plasma membrane, the superficial periphery, enclosing the cytoplasm and organelles. Its semi-permeable controlling passage. The cytosol, or cytoplasm, is the gel-like matrix inside, organizing the organelles. It supports them and prevents the cell from teeming or shrinking excessively.
And the central command center, the nucleus.
Yes. The nucleus is the control epicenter. It's membrane-bound, comprises the genetic material DNA, and aims or directs all cell happenings, helping with protein establishment. Then we have the chloroplasts, plastids with a green pigment chlorophyll. They trap leg dynamism, translating it to chemical energy via photosynthesis. Each has 2 membranes and internal hoard of coin structures called thylakoids, or more accurately, stacks of thylakoids called grana. The mitochondrion carries out cellular respiration, affording energy in the form of ATP. They are the power plants of the cell. They retain their own hereditary factual or genetic material for self-recurrence or explosion, meaning self-replication and division.
And the storage and packaging units we mentioned, vacuoles and Golgi.
The vacuoles are momentary storage centers, typically a large casing spring chamber or fluid-filled sac. Their functions include emission, secretion, excretion likely a typo in source, and storage space. The membrane fencing or enclosing a vacuole is specifically called the tonoplast. The Golgi body or Golgi complex is where proteins are sorted and packed. It's the cell's packaging center, processing and rafting or packaging macromolecules. Ribosomes are the least or smallest and most abundant organelles made of RNA and protein. They are sites for protein synthesis, the protein factories of the sect or cell.
And the internal transportation network, the ER.
That's the endoplasmic reticulum, ER, membrane-enclosed organelles that convey resources. It's a large linkage of interrelating membrane shafts, or network of membranes, comprising rough and soft types. It's liable or responsible for protein conversion. Protein conveys for the cell membrane, confiscation or sequestration of calcium, and the manufacture and storeroom of glycogen and other macromolecules. The cytoskeleton, a network of yarns, microtubules and microfilaments, preserves the cell silhouette and gives support. Microtubules are echoing drum-like erections or hollow cylinders involved in transference and structural support. Microfilaments are dense rod-like structures crucial for structural support and movement.
And how do plant cells communicate with each other through those thick walls?
That's handled by plasmodemata, microscopic canals crisscrossing cell walls, enabling transference and announcement or communication between adjacent cells. And just to recap, plastids generally, they are storage organelles storing arvus like starch, involved in the amalgamation of fatty acids and terpenes. Coined by Schimper from Greek plasticus, twisted-mounded. Besides chloroplasts, they include leucoplasts, non-pigmented plastids for storage, and chromoplasts, plastids guilty or responsible for pigment amalgamation and storeroom found in colored organs like fruits and flowers. We also have liposomes, which comprise digestive enzymes involved in concentrating excess or worn-out organelles, food particles, and foreign bodies more accurately termed lysosomes in animal cells, though plants have related vacuoles. And microbodies, single membrane-bound organelles with derivative enzymes for specific metabolic pathways.
So many specialized parts. Let's dive deeper into the chloroplasts, the real engines of life.
Right. The word chloroplast comes from Greek chloros, green, and plats, formentity. It's the most imperative plastid, elaborately involved in photosynthesis. They're typically situated near the apparent or surface of the cell, in parts receiving ample sunlight. Their silhouette varies spheroid, ovoid, discoid. Their dimension is stable per cell category, but differs per species. Size is usually around 4 to 5 microns in duration length and 1 to 3 microns in chunkiness width. The number varies. 20-40 per cell is common, but can be up to 1,000. It varies per species, but is relentless or constant for a given plant or plant type. Structurally, they're disc-shaped, encircled by a twofold membrane. The inner membrane encloses a protein-rich constituent called the stoma, or stroma, where a membrane system is rooted. This membrane system forms membrane spring vesicles, or flattened sacs, called thylakoids, often stacked into grana. Their main function is photosynthesis, containing all the necessary enzymes and coenzymes. Consider how these tiny organelles, often numbering in the dozens or hundreds within a single cell, are responsible for capturing the energy that fuels nearly all life on Earth. It's a miracle of biological engineering.
Okay, moving up in scale from cells, we arrive at plant tissues. This is where that incredible journey of plants colonizing land really comes into focus. Imagine, around 500 million eons, or years ago, during the Ordovician epoch, plants settled the terrestrial environment.
That's right. And the land offered significant advantages over the sea. More nimble or daintier greatness, meaning more light intensity and augmented CO2 levels. But as you said, challenges arose. Gaining and absorbing water, vertical body upkeep against gravity, and effective seed scattering.
And the ingenious solution plants evolved, specialized tissues.
Exactly. Plants congregated studied or specialized cells to form nerves, or rather tissues, with precise jobs to handle these challenges. A tissue system is an institute or organization of skins or tissues into loftier, higher units. Assorted tissue classifications congregated to form these systems. 4 main forms or tubs: vascular, epidermal, ground, and meristematic. Each entails altered categories of cubicles, cells, diverse roles, and unalike or different spaces or locations. This is really where we see evolution in action as plants developed incredibly sophisticated solutions, moving beyond the simple structures of their aquatic ancestors.
So let's start with the tissues responsible for that continuous growth we see in plants, the meristems.
Those are meristematic tissues. Meristems are liable or responsible for the unceasing decay, perhaps meaning growth rather than decay, of plants and are contemporary or present throughout their lives. They have cytological sorts or characteristics of homogeneous cells. They're trifling, small, diametric or roughly spherical, with a very reedy, thin, crucial primary cell wall. The cytoplasm is opulent, rich in ribosomes, plastids, and countless small vacuoles, but deprived, poor in ER and annexations, inclusions. A toned or active Golgi complex synthesizes cell wall gears or materials. A huge nucleus encompasses abbreviated or condensed chromatin traced centrally. These cells are snifter effective or highly active, gulf or divide by mitosis, and discern or differentiate into the full assortment of cell types of the mature plant.
And these meristems are classified based on their topographic point, their location, and vigorous spell or period of activity.
Yes. There's also preprocambium, found in verdures, leaves, acting as antecedents of procambium, though hard to distinguish from leaf pulverized tissue, ground tissue, and provascular tissue and emergent tissue, the soon-to-be vascular cylinder, yielding precursor cells for xylem and phloem. What's fascinating here is that plants have these perpetual growth zones, unlike animals, allowing for continuous adaptation throughout their lifespan.
Beyond growth, plants need basic functions like photosynthesis, storage, and structural support. What are the simple tissues that handle these roles?
Simple tissues generally consist mainly of one cell type. 2 main types are parenchyma and collenchyma. Parenchyma, ground tissues, is not exceedingly dedicated or specialized, but it's intricate or involved in countless occupations. Photosynthesis, stowage, storage, fusion processing of constituents, synthesis metabolism, and tissue revival, repair. It has a solitary parenchymatic cell type with a thin primary cell hedge or wall. It's often gazed at or regarded as the forebear or predecessor of other cell types, less discerned, differentiated, closer in behavior to meristematic cells. There are 4 types according to occupation listed: photosynthetic, auriferous, possibly storage or secretory, storage and auriferous again, likely a typo, maybe referring to parenchyma for air storage. We'll include as listed.
Okay, and collenchyma, the supporting tissue.
Collenchyma, supporting tissues, is an alive tissue with impartial or just one type of cell. It has a profuse or thick primary cell wall, elongated morphology, and its foremost alliance or orientation is parallel to the main federation or axis of the organ. The thick primary cell wall has thickening scattered in altered slices or areas of the cell apparent or surface. This affords the tissue with inordinate stretchy asset or great tensile strength and conflict or resistance against machine-driven or mechanical strain.
Are there different kinds of collenchyma based on how their cell walls are thickened?
Yes, dissimilar sorts liable or dependent on the congealing or thickening of cell walls. Angular collenchyma has thickenings in approaches or corners, with no intercellular cosmoses, spaces. Laminar collenchyma has thickenings in superficial, tangential, and inward oblique radial walls. Lacunar's parenchyma, likely meant lacunar collenchyma, comprehends intercellular galaxies, spaces, with thickenings adjoining those spaces. Annular collenchyma displays uniform congealing or thickening nearby or around the cell. It raises an important question. How did these seemingly simple tissues allow for such complex functions as healing, support, and capturing sunlight?
So those are the simple tissues. Let's move to the more specialized complex tissues that allowed plants to truly conquer land and grow large. Sclerenchyma.
Right. Complex tissues involve multiple cell types. First, sclerenchyma, support tissue. It's distinct from collenchyma. It has binary or two categories of cells with condensed or very thick cell walls, subordinate, meaning secondary, and forested, likely meaning lignified, immatured cells. Ripe sclerenchymatic cells do not comprise protoplasm and are deceased or dead cells. Their imperative utility is in backing mouthpieces or supporting organs that do not cultivate or grow anymore. They defend laxer or more susceptible herbal portions against widening, stretching, weights, burdens, and winding, bending. They are most plentiful in stems and greeneries, leaves, then heritages, roots, in structures with prime subordinate, primary-secondary structures. Think of the woody parts of plants, providing rigidity.
And the vascular tissues, xylem and phloem, absolutely critical for transport. They evolved around 450 million years ago.
Indeed. Vascular tissues, xylem and phloem, are focused or specialized. Tissues for enrapturing or transporting water, inanimate, inorganic, and biological constituents. Acted or evolved 450 million years ago. Xylem, sometimes called firewood, passages enormous quantities of water and inert gradual amalgams, dissolved substances, from the basis root to the leaves. It has four cell categories: tracheids and vessel origins, elements, the riddle steering cells or interlacing rudiments, water-conducting cells, plus parenchyma cells and sclerenchyma yarns, fibers, for stowage support. Ornamentation features include lignin in the dense, stiff secondary cell wall, and they lose cytoplasm after differentiation. Trach name comes from resemblance to insect tracheal hoses, tubes. Morphology of tracheids vessel elements is distinct due to thickenings, annular, helical, reticulated, sprinkled, or pitted edifices. Tracheids are elongated, skin-tight, narrow, fusiforms, spindle-shaped.
And phloem, carrying the food.
Phloem, also called web tissue or glints, bast, carriages organic constituents fused or synthesized in plant body publications, leaves stowage tissues toward the rest of the plant. It has more cell types than xylem. Conductive essentials are strainer cells, sieve cells, and riddle hose pipes, sieve tubes. These are living cells, though lacking cores, nuclei when mature. Their main cell partition, wall, is thickened by callus deposits. Non-conductor practicalities include sclerenchyma cords, fibers, and parenchyma cells with diverse occupation morphology. Cohort cells, or companion cells, originated tightly joined to conductive elements and help manage them. This system of vascular tissues is a prime example of evolutionary success, allowing plants to grow tall, transport resources efficiently, and truly dominate land environments.
And finally, the protection tissues, epidermis and periderm, found on the outside.
Yes, protection tissues, epidermis and periderm, are traced or found in the outer peripheral fragment of plant structures in habitual interaction with the milieu or environment. Epidermis is present during primary development, acting as the fortification tissue of the stalk, stem, root, leaf, flower, and seeds. It's the utmost exterior portion, but not existent in the apical landfill of roots, under the calyptras or root cap, or airborne shoot, meristems. It's set purchasable by or derived from the protoderm, exterior coating of apical meristems. Beyond shelter, it handles inhalation, respiration, transpiration, gas altercation exchange, stowing storage, emission secretion, resists herbivores, fascinates, attracts pollinating insects, and handles water captivation by roots.
And periderm, that's the replacement for epidermis in older stems and roots, like bark.
Exactly. Periderm begins inside roots and shoots that undergo tributary or secondary advanced growth. It's shaped by the cork cambium, phellogen meristems, ancillary or secondary meristems. Phellogen cells rift or divide, forming rackets or layers of cells towards the superficial outside and interior inside. The outmost sheets are more plentiful, become sobering, suberized, and perish starting cork or forming dead cork. The private or inner cells remain active, forming stacks and establishing the phylloderm. Consider the bark of a tree. It's a testament to this incredible protective tissue, shielding the living layers beneath.
Okay, so from tissues, we move up to plant organs, specialized structures like roots, stems, and leaves. These are generalized tissues combined to help the plant endure and breed or survive and reproduce.
Right. The foremost tissues are organized into these organs: roots, stems, and leaves. Vascular plants basically have two organ classifications or systems: the shoot system and the root system.
And the shoot system includes everything above ground, mostly.
Yes. The shoot system comprises the vegetative, non-reproductive parts, the greeneries, leaves, and stems, and also the reproductive parts, flowers, and fruits. The root system, conversely, includes all the roots of a shrub or plant. Here's where it gets really interesting. The clear division of labor between the underground and aerial parts, each optimized for specific functions essential for life.
Let's start again with roots, focusing on them as organs. They are the foundational organ, anchoring and absorbing, significant organs in all vascular plants. Typically, topmost roots grow downhill and tributary roots subdivision out.
And these roots form systems. We mentioned taproot organizations before. A solitary, profuse, crucial root, taproot, with minor ancillary roots. They can pierce 60 meters, 200 feet underneath, access very echoing or deep water helixes, sources, stockpile a lot of food for dearth moderations, endurance, survival, and drought excess, and anchor the plant tightly. Then there are fibrous root systems, with numerous small splitting roots, fibrous roots, no hefty primary root. Their enormous number of fragile roots increases the apparent zone or surface area for water mineral fascination, absorption. They anchor the plant less steadily, though.
And specific constructions and occupations or structures and functions within the root organ.
At the tip is the root cap, made of dedicated cells, regulating crucial growth and guarding the devoted or delicate top. Overhead, or just above the root cap, are the primeristems, where progress in span or length befalls occurs. Epidermal cells form a solostratum, or single layer, overhead the meristems, covering the rest of the root. They may have root tresses or hairs outpourings that increase peripheral expanse for water mineral rapture, absorption. Ground tissue lies beneath the epidermis, often bursting with stowed arrowroot or stored starch. Vascular tissues form bundles at the epicenter of the root. Waxy coats waterproof them, making them proficient at stentorian or transporting fluids. Inferior meristems, or secondary meristems, are sited within nearby the vascular tissues, where evolution or growth in chunkiness, girth, befalls. So the three foremost trades or functions are absorbing water and minerals, securing and providing ancillary support to the plant, and storing food.
How does root growth work? They grow in length and width.
Yes, using chief primary and inferior secondary meristems for progress in extent and girth. They cultivate lengthier, constantly growing dejected, or downwards into the ground due to gravitropism, even if upside down. Roots grow downward. Thicker roots have less water mineral fascination, absorption surface area, but are better at conveying fluids, securing the plant, and storing food. What's fascinating here is the sheer dedication of roots, constantly growing downwards, optimizing for absorption and stability, and storing vital reserves. From the anchor, let's move to the stems. The plant's structural backbone supporting everything above ground, clutching plants vertical for sunlight hair, abiding leaves, flowers, pine cones, ancillary stems, and structures cultivate at facts called lumps or nodes meristem tissue for dedication to vague or specific edifice structures. Their vigorous purposes or vital functions include shipping water minerals from ancestries, roots, to greeneries, leaves, and resonant nourishment or transporting food from leaves to the rest of the plant. Without this root-leaf connotation or connection, plants couldn't endure high above ground. Many plants also hoard food water in their stems during cold dehydrated seasons. Stem diversity displays distinction due to dedication specialization, allows plants to deed or exploit an assortment of fortes or niches in all telluric bionetworks, terrestrial ecosystems. Protuberances, or nodes, are where greenery assemblies, leaf structures, cultivate grow.
And stem tissues are similar to roots, with epidermis, ground, and vascular tissues.
Yes, very similar basic structure. The epidermis is a single-celled layer, providing protection, waterproofing, and gear shifting or regulating gas altercation exchange. In trees, bark, an amalgamation of tissues, supplants or replaces the epidermis. It's a tough, forested, woody outer layer on twigs. The innermost part is blooming, emergent, living, growing. The superficial slice is lifeless, providing fortis strength, sustenance support, shield protection. Pulverized tissue, ground tissue, is inner of the stem. Hefty, crucial vacuoles can block with water to funding or support the plant. Cells may stockpile food. Vascular tissue parcels or bundles route through the ground tissue carrying fluids. These wads or bundles are settled differently across various plant groups.
And stems grow longer and thicker, too.
Yes. They grow lengthier via prime evolution or primary growth in principal meristems at the instructions protuberances, tips nodes, of stems. They grow in chunkiness, girth, via tributary secondary growth in inferior secondary meristems, positioned in or everywhere around the vascular tissues. Secondary advanced customs or creates secondary vascular tissues and bark. The annual growth loop in trees creates those rings in the shaft or trunk, which can be used to appraisal or estimate age. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the stem isn't just passive support. It's a dynamic, living highway and storage unit, constantly adapting and recording its own history.
And finally, leaves. The photosynthesis powerhouses, the secrets to all telluric or terrestrial life. Primary role: assemble sunlight and make nutriment by photosynthesis. Excessive assortment or huge variety in leaves despite this vital work. No solo finest technique to amass solar dynamism.
Indeed. Leaf variation is incredible. They diverge in extent, size, silhouette shape, and prearrangement on stems. Though not all flowering vascular plants have them, 3 elementary types mentioned are microphyls, tiny leaves, fronds, and indicators, perhaps needles. Custom and preparation, or form and arrangement, exploits light acquaintance exposure while sustaining water, dipping gale battle, reducing wind resistance, and promoting the herbal plant and its precise habitat.
Can you give some examples of these arrangements and shapes?
Sure. Arrangement examples. Spirals encircling upright shoots at gaps, nodes allow capture of sunlight from all directions. Basal emblems, or rosettes, take advantage of heartfelt infections, maybe meaning intense light near the ground. Replacement, alternate or contrasting duos, opposite pairs, collect bright light from overhead, typically on plants with a solitary vertical stem. Shape examples. Modest simple leaves have edges not alienated, undivided, maximizing outside area for gathering rays. Complex compound leaves have the sharp edge blades separated into smaller leaflets, which decrease storm confrontation, wind resistance, and water beating loss.
So each leaf is like a miniature factory for photosynthesis, a workshop.
Exactly. A leaf entails numerous different varieties of dedicated materials or specialized tissues that work composed or together to make nutriment, food. The chief muscles or main tissues are mesophyll, veins, and epidermis. Mesophyll makes up most of the greenery's interior, leaf interior, and it's where photosynthesis befalls occurs. It consists of parenchyma cells packed with chloroplasts. Veins are primarily xylem and phloem. They carry water reserves, nutrients to the cells, and carry away melted or dissolved sugar. Epidermis is a solitary layer of tightly packed dermal cells. It stows or secretes a waxy cuticle to prevent water desertion, loss. It also has minuscule apertures or tiny pores called stomata, singular stoma. Stomata rheostat or control transpiration and gas altercation exchange with the air. They are skirted or surrounded by guard cells that swell or therapist shrink by attractive in or losing water via osmosis, thus releasing or shutting the stomata.
We're all familiar with the familiar sight of fall colors. What's the biological process behind that seasonal change?
The color change is elicited or triggered by dumpier, shorter days and Schiller's malaise, cooler temperatures. Shrubberies or plants retort or respond by producing less chlorophyll. This allows other pigments already present like oranges and yellows, carotenoids, xanthophylls to be appreciated or become visible. Deciduous florae plants shack or shed their leaves seasonally each year. It's a tactic for sinking or reducing water forfeiture, loss, during life-threatening infertility, or adverse dryness cold. It requires energy matter for new leaves in coil. Spring, they may bank energy over winter by stowage, storing food in roots or stems.
And evergreen plants have a different tactic.
Yes. Evergreen plants employ a diverse tactic for acclimatizing to periodic dryness or cold. They don't surplus vigor staple, expend energy resources, growing new leaves. They remain foliage, or keep their leaves, staying green year-round. They diminish water loss with features like needle-like leaves and a very profuse or thick cuticle. The disadvantage is that needle-like leaves lessen the apparent area for sunlight. But this is a vital reworking or adaptation for low stages of sunlight, sanctioning evergreens to live remote from the equator in colder or drier regions. This raises an important question. How do these different strategies, deciduous versus evergreen, represent trade-offs in resource allocation and adaptation to varying climates?
All right, let's shift gears slightly to plant morphology, the study of the plant's external form and assembly. Typically deliberated dissimilar from plant anatomy, which is internal edifice. Morph means form. Logos means study.
Exactly. Plant morphology deals with the tutoring, or study, of approaches, forms, and topographies, features, of miscellaneous plant structures. Roots, shoot, leaves, flowers, seeds, fruits. It's one of the furthermost vital wigs, perhaps meaning branches, of botany. It resulted in independent arts or fields. Plant anatomy, muscle cell edifice or tissue cell structure. Plant embryology, embryo extension or development. Cytology, cell construction enlargement. It studies form extension, development, and assembly structure of an organism. Also, uniformities on a population species smooth level, considering the fruition or realization of form. If we connect this to the bigger picture, morphology is about understanding the visible story of a plant, how it's built to interact with its environment, and how that form evolves.
So the emblematic or typical angiosperm plant frame has that basic two-system division again.
Yes, an aerial shoot system and an underground root system. The shoot system includes the stem, including branches, leaves, flowers, and fruits. The vegetative fraction includes roots, stems, and leaves. The reproductive fraction is primarily the flowers.
Let's revisit roots with a focus on their morphological aspects and modifications. In dicots, that firm elongation of the indispensable clue, or radical, leads to the primary root, which accepts adjacent ancestries, lateral roots.
Right. And morphologically, we distinguish three types of roots: taproot, fibrous root, and adventitious root. The taproot organization includes the chief roots and its sectors, or branches. In monocots, the chief root is stout-endured, or short-lived, and switched or replaced by a large quantity of roots arising from the improper, or base, of the stem, forming the fibrous root system. Adventitious roots ascend, or arise, from parts other than the fundamental root or radical, like in grass or the prop roots of a banyan tree. Major purpose: combination absorption of water natural resources from earth, proper anchorage, a mass reserve food, synthesis of plant growth watchdogs, regulators, regions of the root, covered by the thimble-like root cap, guards devoted top or apex. The area of meristematic action is a few millimeters overhead above, with minor cells, thin-walled, thick protoplasm, huge nucleus.
And the modifications of roots we touched on earlier, they change figure assembly for different roles.
Yes, adapted for roles supplementary to preoccupation transference, absorption transport. These include hold-up support, storage of food, and respiration. Tap roots of bribe, carrot, and turnip, and adventitious roots of sweet potato get distended and store food. Lifter roots or prop roots, like in maize and sugarcane, are supporting roots from poorer or lower nodes. Pneumatophores. In plants like rhizophora growing in swampy areas, sundry roots come out of the pulverized ground, grow plumb uphill, vertically upwards, helping obtain oxygen for exhalation, respiration. What's fascinating here is how the root, seemingly simple, undergoes incredible transformations to fulfill highly specialized roles.
Now, the stem morphologically. The ascending part, comporting branches, leaves, flowers, fruits, matures from plumage or plumule of the embryo, bears nodes and internodes, bears buds, terminal or axillary, generally green when young, later timbered, woody, and dark brown.
Its main occupation is dispersion out branches bearing leaves, flowers, fruits. It also demeanors or conducts water and minerals, and sometimes performs photosynthesis. Some stems carry out storage, support, protection, and vegetative propagation. Adjustments of stem. They're not always typically as expected, altered for similar or varied occupations. Subversive or underground stems like potato, ginger, turmeric, samacan, colocasia are altered to store food. They act as organs of presentation or pyrenation to tide over adverse conditions. Stem tendrils build up from axillary buds, are slender, spirally coiled, and help plants to scale or climb. Gourds, grapevines. Thorns, axillary blossoms, or buds, are altered into woody, straight, pointed thorns. They guard plants from glancing or grazing. Animals, citrus, bougainvillea. In arid districts, stems adapt into flattened or fleshy cylindrical structures, euphorbia, to water storage and photosynthesis. Consider the humble potato that's actually a modified stem, brilliant for storing energy underground.
And the leaf, morphologically. The adjacent, commonly flattened assembly, born on the stem, progresses at the protuberance node, bears a blossom bud in its axil, devised from sprout apical meristems settled in a cropital order, most vital asexual or vegetative organs for photosynthesis.
A characteristic leaf comprises three foremost portions: leaf base, petiole, lamina. The leaf is devoted or attached to the stem by the leaf improper, or base, which may bear two cross-minor leaf-like structures, stipules. In monocotyledons, the leaf base swells into a sheath covering the stalk partially or wholly. Venation, the prearrangement of traces, veins, and veinlets in the lamina. Reticulate venation, vein tendencies or veinlets form a network, typical of dicotyledonous plants. Parallel venation, veins run corresponding or parallel to each other. typical of monocotyledons.
What about types of leaves based on the lamina? Simple versus compound.
Yes, an unassuming simple leaf. Lamina is intact, or if slit, the notches do not bit or reach the midrib. A composite compound leaf. Scratches or incisions of lamina influence or reach up to the midrib, flouting or breaking it into leaflets. A bud is current or present in the axil of the petiole in both simple compound leaves, but not in the axil of leaflets of a compound leaf. Compound leaf types. Pinnately compound leaf. Leaflets arranged along a central axis. Rachis. Palmately compound leaf. Leaflets devoted or attached at a common point, tip of petiole. Samsey, silk cotton.
And phyllotaxy again, the arrangement pattern on the stem?
Decoration or pattern of organization of leaves on the stem brand. Three main types: substitute, alternate, reverse, opposite, and whorled.
And leaves are also modified for other jobs.
Repeatedly adjusted to achieve occupations other than photosynthesis. Into twists, tendrils. For climbing, peas. Into spines. For defense, cacti. Fleshy leaves, onion, garlic stockpile food, petiole modifications, petioles swell converted green, synthesis food, phyllodes and some acacia. Insectivorous plants, pitcher plant, Venus flytrap improved or modified, leaves. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these leaf modifications are brilliant examples of convergent evolution, where different plants arrive at similar solutions for survival challenges.
Let's move to the flower, the reproductive masterpiece, the generative entity in angiosperms predestined for voluptuous or sexual reproduction.
A typical flower has 4 miscellaneous kinds of spirals, whorls, organized sequentially on the inflamed end of the trunk, pedicel, called the thalamus or vessel, receptacle. The whorls are calyx, corolla, endoecia, endoecium, gynoecium, accessory organs, calyx, corolla, preparative reproductive organs, endoecia, genoecia. If the calyx and corolla are not dissimilar, it's called a periapt, e.g. lily. A flower is bisexual if it has both endoecia and gynoecia. It's unisexual if it has only stamens or only carpels.
Okay, tell us about the parts of the flower again. The whorls.
Calyx, the outmost spiral. Affiliates or members are called sepals, usually green, leaf-like, shielding the blossom and the grow, or bud, stage. Can be gamosepalous, sepals united, or polysepalous, sepals free. Corolla, serene or composed of petals, radiantly painted to fascinate insects for pollination. Can be amalgamated gamosepalous, gamopetalous petals united, or polypetalous, petals free. Figure shade varies significantly. Tube-like, bell, funnel, wheel-shaped, androecium. Tranquil or composed of stamens, male reproductive organ. Each stamen entails a twig strand, filament, and an anther. The anther is typically bilobed, each lobe having 2 chambers, pollen sacs, where pollen jots or grains are formed. Gynoecium, the female procreant part, made up of one or supplementary more carpels. A carpel comprises stigma, style, ovary. The berry or ovary is the inflamed basal part. The style links the ovary to the stigma.
And estivation, the arrangement within the bud.
Yes, estivation is the mode of preparation or arrangement of sepals or petals in the floral bud relative to each other. Main forms are valvate, twisted, imbricate, vexillary. Consider the incredible diversity of flower shapes, sizes, and colors, each a testament to millions of years of coevolution with pollinators.
Then comes the fruit, the protective vessel, the mature ovary. Representative article of acme or flowering plants. Developed mature ovary, industrialized or developed after pollination. A parthenocarpic fruit is formed without fertilization of the ovary.
Mostly, a fruit comprises a wall, pericarp, and seed. The pericarp may be dry or fleshy. Pericarp layers, outside to internal. Epicarp, exocarp skin. Mesocarp, plum central sheet. Endocarp, deepest layer, environs or surrounds kernel seeds. What's fascinating here is how the fruit isn't just food for us, but a highly evolved structure designed primarily to protect and disperse the seeds within.
And finally, the seeds. The future of the plant, the core of reproduction. Ovules after impregnation or fertilization mature into seeds, made up of pit coat, seed coat, and embryo. Embryo prepared up of radical, embryonic partnership axis, and 1 wheat, maize, or 2 gram pea cotyledons.
And there are 2 sorts of seed structure, dicotyledonous seed and monocotyledonous seed, differing mainly in the number of cotyledons and how food is stored. This raises an important question. How does something so small contain all the genetic information and potential for an entirely new plant? And how is it optimized for survival and dispersal?
All right, let's shift to plant physiology, the study of utility and function, the inner workings, ultimate progressions or processes like photosynthesis, respiration, transpiration, bloomy introduction, flowering.
Exactly. Plant physiology is a deputized chastisement or major subdiscipline of botany, anxious or concerned with operational function physiology. It's meticulously linked to arenas like plant morphology, plant ecology, photochemistry, cell ecology, biology, inheritance, genetics, molecular biology, and biophysics. Superfluous courses or key processes studied include photosynthesis, respiration, plant nutrition, plant hormone occupations, functions, tropisms, massic movements, photoperiodism, photomorphogenesis, circadian measure, rhythm, ecological stress physiology, seed germination, dormancy, stomata role, transpiration, essentially fragments or aspects of plant-water relative relations. What's fascinating here is how plant physiology delves into the how and why behind every plant process, from tiny molecular interactions to grand cycles of growth and reproduction.
So it really embraces the revision or study of all inside deeds or internal activities of plants, the chemical physical progressions allied with life.
Yes, and in many stages of gauge or scale. From molecular connections of photosynthesis and core dispersal of water minerals nutrients at the tiniest weighbridge, smallest scale, to plant expansion, seasonality, dormancy, and multiplicative rheostat, reproductive control, at the prime gauge, largest scale. Foremost sub-chastisements include photochemistry, biochemistry, and physiopathology, study of syndrome or disease in plants. This raises an important question. How do these different scales of study inform each other, giving us a complete picture of plant life?
Water absorption and balance is obviously decisive. Water is the most copious ingredient, over 70% by heft, weight of non-woody plant slices parts. Its constant drift or movement is a repetitive ceremonial of mutability, constant flux.
Precisely. Let's look at water potential. An oxygen atom is covalently glued to two hydrogen atoms. There's an unfinished negative burden, partial negative charge, on oxygen, and fractional constructive custody, partial positive charge, on hydrogens. This asymmetric electron diffusion makes water a glacial or polar molecule, though overall neutral. Water movement occurs by diffusion, osmosis, and bulk flow. Translocation of constituents can be active or reflexive, passive. Water translocation is unreceptive, passive. Wholesale flow or transmission bulk flow occurs for most constituents. Osmosis is the diffusion of water transversely across a selectively penetrable barricade membrane.
How does water in the soil affect this?
Water in the soil. Water gratified content and movement rate are contingent on soil type erection structure. Water latent or potential of soils includes osmotic latent potential, hydrostatic heaviness, pressure, and gravitational budding potential. Osmotic potential of soil water is mostly minor. Hydrostatic pressure is near zero for showery wet soils, but diminution adverse decreases becomes negative as soil dehydrates.
And absorption by the root, through those root hairs.
Water absorption by root. Warm commerce or intimate contact between the superficial surface of the root and soil is vital. Root tresses, hairs, are filamentous extensions of epidermal cells, surging the surface expanse area, providing bulk for ions water fascination, absorption. Water appears or enters the root most voluntarily near the source landfill, root tip.
And the plant's overall water status is constantly changing?
Yes, the plant water status is continuously fluctuating, reliant on soil wetness, gratified content, capability for H2O captivation by roots, and hydraulic conductivity of root bud, muscles, tissues. Water latent potential is used as a quota or measure of water prestige status. Influence of extreme water supply. Plant progression growth is narrow or limited by water discrepancy, scarcity dearth. And surplus water, submerging soil compaction. Toxic possessions of surplus water often involve dislocation of oxygen from soil.
How does water get transported up through the xylem?
Transport through the xylem. Xylem tissue conveys water liquefied minerals from the derivation, root, to stem to mid-air publications, aerial parts. Lofty veins section into slighter attitudes, branch into smaller veins, ensuring no photosynthetic foliage cell is more than a rare cell's impassive, distant from a small vein culmination ending.
And transpiration is the engine driving this?
Largely, yes. Transpiration. Water crusade, or movement, is gritty or determined by alterations in water latent potential. The lashing force is the modification or difference in water potential between the substomatal air, planetary space, and peripheral ether, outside atmosphere. Water is transmitted via ether systems, stomata. Key factors for water forfeiture loss. Confrontation resistance, allied with dispersion through the stomata aperture, leaf stomata confrontation resistance. Conflict resistance due to the stratum layer of unstirred air succeeding adjacent to the greenery superficial leaf surface. The leaf frontier layer confrontation, boundary layer resistance. It really raises the question, how do plants manage such precise control over water, especially given environmental variations?
Moving on to nutrient supply. Plants are autotrophic, the bottommost of the food chain, converting sunlight energy into food. They take in CO2 from the ether, atmosphere, water organic nutrients from dirt, soil, and make complex molecules. Inorganic nutrients adapted by plants ultimately find their way into the matter of all animals.
Right. We can study essential nutrients using methods like hydroponics or clarification philosophy, solution culture. Budding, growing plants with roots engrossed in nutrient solution without soil. This requires large bulk alterations of solution and ample run-of-the-mill oxygen aeration to the root system. Nutrients come from the soil, roots interact with microbes, damagingly electric soil subdivisions, charged soil particles affect absorption of inanimate inorganic nutrients. Soil pH disturbs nutrient accessibility. Excess mineral ions in soil can frontier or limit plant growth.
And plants develop extensive root systems to reach these nutrients.
Yes. The plants develop extensive root system. Their capability to attain water mineral nutrients is linked to their size and ability to ripen or develop a widespread root system. It's difficult to annotate or fully describe root classifications and extent. Root propagation, or growth, is contingent on the disposal or distribution of water reserves in the rhizosphere, immediate microenvironment around the root.
And nutritional deficiencies can impact yield.
Definitely. Nutritional deficiencies. Necessities alter through growth advance. In crop plants, nutrient levels at firm stages can inspiration or influence harvest yield. Agriculturalists examine nutrient echelons levels in soil plant tissue to govern fertilizer agendas to enhance yields. What's fascinating here is how plants, seemingly stuck, have developed incredibly sophisticated ways to acquire diverse nutrients from their immediate surroundings.
And photosynthesis, again, the cornerstone. The coarse charity or process used by plant creatures to convert light energy, sun, into chemical energy. In floroalgae, takes place in chloroplasts. 10-100 per typical plant cell, chloroplast fenced or enclosed by a membrane.
Pigments are most significant for this plant occupation function. Include porphyries, like chlorophyll, carotenoids, anthocyanins. They selectively fascinate confident wavelengths of sunlight while dazzling or reflecting others. Absorbed light is used for chemical reactions. Reflected wavelengths determine color. Here's where it gets really interesting. Photosynthesis isn't just about green. It's a complex interplay of various pigments, each perfectly tuned to capture specific points of the light spectrum.
How do plants sense and respond? We mentioned hormones and light responses.
Yes. Plant hormones, also called plant growth supervisors PGRS phytohormones, are chemicals that normalize or regulate plant evolution development. Unlike animal hormones, they're often not elated or transported to other plant parts extensively, and construction synthesis isn't inadequate or restricted to unambiguous specific localities. Photomorphogenesis is the use of light to rheostat control organizational advance, morphogenesis or development. It's reliant on dedicated photoreceptors, biochemical stains or pigments, riveting or absorbing precise wavelengths. Few comprehend or few realize the plant's sympathy or sensitivity to light in regulating mechanical expansion, physical development.
And photoperiods, response to day length.
Photoperiods. Sundry or many blossoming plants use the pigment photochromic, phytochrome, to wisdom or sense recurrent vicissitudes, changes in day length, as signs to flower. This sympathy, sensitivity to day length, is called photoperiodic, photoperiodism. They're classified based on this. Long day plants necessitate a firm, tiniest span of daylight to jerks initiate blossoming, floret and helix, or seasonal flower in spring or summer. Petite day plants. Flore flower with a dimension of daylight cataracts falls beneath a short grave glassy, certain critical level. Day non-aligned plants do not pledge flowering based on photoperiodics. Some may use malaise warmth, temperature cues instead. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these subtle biochemical signals and light responses reveal a level of plant awareness and decision-making far more sophisticated than just growing towards the sun.
And this all has huge economic applications.
Absolutely. Economic applications of plant physiology. Vital issue recitation or subject related to berries, fruits, vegetables, usable plant fragments. Foci studied include climatic necessities, fruit drop, nutrition, maturing, ripening, fruit set, food harvest fabrication, production, determining optimum planting harvesting epoch times, post-yield stowage, post-harvest storage. Also manufacture of tributary harvests, secondary products like medications, grease paints, cosmetics. This demonstrates the direct impact of botanical understanding on our daily lives.
Okay, let's dive into plant reproduction, ensuring the next generation. Its fundamental purpose is producing new individuals or progenies.
And this is achieved by sexual or asexual imitation or reproduction. Sexual reproduction involves the synthesis or fusion of gametes, resulting in descendants hereditarily dissimilar from the fatherly parents. The plant generative system can be sexual or asexual. The end consequence is the extension or perpetuation of a given species. The ability to replicate is traditional or inherent and assumed to individual reasonable change through development or subject to evolutionary modification. This profile is demonstrable through the study of various plant groups. What's fascinating here is how plants, often stationary, evolved an incredible array of strategies, often with astonishing creativity, to ensure species continuation.
What are the paramount or main forms of plant reproduction? Seeds are common, but there are asexual means too.
Yes, the paramount shared form is often seeds. But a number of asexual means are utilized, often enhancements of ordinary vegetative processes. Asexual reproduction involves no unification of cells' nuclei, no associating of inherent traits, no mixing of genetic material from the nucleus. These systems are not alterations of sexual reproduction. Two basic categories, using almost slightly piece part of a plant physique, body, contingent upon particular constructions changed or specialized as generative agents.
Like vegetative reproduction using stems, roots, etc.
Exactly. Vegetative reproduction. New herbal individuals, plants, duplicated from portions of adults. Many varied procedures. Stolons, runners, rhizomes, underground stems, suckers, new shoots from roots, adventitious leaves, new plants forming from leaves. Also, reproduction by fragments. Plant build destruction, fragmentation, surveyed, followed by renewal expansion of remains into complete new creatures. Liverworts mosses, remains restored to method novel new plants. Liverworts fragment due to development, increasing fragments discrete, separated by deterioration. Established shares often die during drought, but instructions, tips, e-commerce development, and crop sequence produce a succession of novel shrubberies.
And reproduction by special asexual structure.
Yes, reproduction by special asexual structures, particularly separated reformed cells, collections of cells, or tissues, have derived to purpose or evolved to function as tissues of asexual reproduction through growth development. Asexual means a discrete generative agent grows into a new separate individual deprived of without combination of sex cells, gametes.
What about sexual reproduction then?
Sexual reproduction. In most plant clusters, both sexual and asexual methods occur. Some classes appear secondarily to have lost sexual reproduction. It depends on a complex sequence of rudimentary cellular proceedings involving chromosomes, genes, inside intricate sexual devices, structures. It allows for the growth of novel plants, dissimilar from the two parentages, parents. This raises an important question. Why do plants maintain both sexual and asexual reproduction? What are the pros and cons in different environments?
So there's variation in these cycles.
Yes, significant variation in reproduction cycles. Life cycles generative procedures described above define the massive popular or majority of plant collections, groups. For example, in liverworts, minor remains of saprophyte stem, sporophyte fragments, are proficient at renewing diploid myophytes. In losses, both diploid haploid apospores, development without spores, have been experimentally suggested. Remains of moss greeneries, leaves, shoots, rhizoids, even disinfected sex organs can renew haploid gatophytes. This complexity highlights the deep evolutionary history and adaptability of different plant groups.
Let's focus on flowering plants, angiosperms, the pinnacle of plant reproduction. The flower is the multiplicative or reproductive organ.
Yes, a single flower yields egg sperm. Insemination, fertilization occurs confidential or inside the flower. A single flower springs increase to or gives rise to an achene fruit and stones, seeds. The flower plays a character or role in fertilization by appealing creatures, natures, wind, other hovers, vectors, to transmission pollen scraps, grains. Origin. Around 135 billion times before likely means million years ago. Food source. Most daily food comes from flowering plants. Differentiation from gymnosperms, ovules shaped inside surrounded ampoules termed carpels.
And that unique double fertilization.
Yes, double insemination. A complex, slightly common procedure, actually quite unique to angiosperms. 2 seed cells, sperm cells, are used. Consequences. Conception fertilization of the egg to form the embryo. Creation of nutrient ingredient, endosperm, that feeds the beginning embryo. Process. Pollen ounce, grain, by winged creature self-pollination follows, adheres to the tachystigma, produces a pollen tube that pierces the flamboyant style. Pollen hose, tube, nurtured through sentimental material, stylar tissue. Spreads, reaches the ovule in the fruit ovary. The reproductive cell inside the pollen ounce cylinder, grain tube, divides to form dual seed cells, 2 sperm cells. What's fascinating here is the elegance and efficiency of double fertilization, a key innovation allowing angiosperms to diversify and dominate.
And pollination is the essential transfer step.
Absolutely. Pollination. The performance of transporting pollen ounces, grains, from the male anther to the female disgrace, stigma. Purpose of each breathing creature, living organism, generate ascendants, offspring. One way flora harvest descendants, plants produce offspring, is through creation stones, seeds. This is where the invisible dance between plants and pollinators unfolds, a vital partnership for our food supply.
What about ferns and bryophytes? They're alternative strategies.
Right, ferns. Numerous no-peak vascular flora, seedless vascular plants, own true origins, roots, stalks, stems, multifaceted greeneries, complex leaves, replicate by bacteria, spores. They're in the inferior vascular vegetable division, pteridophytes, greeneries through pitting strains, veins, new greeneries open from fiddlehead, 9,000 species, estimates up to 15,000, ancient separation of vascular flora, 359 million years ago, Carboniferous era, life cycle reliant on bacteria, spores, for dispersion, long-continued seed plant lifetime series, predates seed plants, additional relaxed name,
Manilophytes?
and bryophytes, the non-vascular ones. Bryophytes, non-vascular land plants. Minor, herbaceous flora produce carefully crowded in carpets billows, on rocks, soil, epiphytes. Distinguished from tracheophytes. Environmentally determined photosynthetic stage is the haploid gatophyte group, not diploid saprophytes. Bryophyte saprophytes, sporophytes, are brief, devoted to relying on gatophytes, solitary unsplit stem, seta, and single sporangium. Never form xylem matter, lignin-covering, water-conducting matter. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these diverse reproductive methods illustrate the incredible adaptability of plants across vast geological timescales.
And the physiology behind reproduction. When is the right time?
Physiology of plant reproduction involves the development of saprophytes, gametophytes, spores, gametes. Includes both interior and ecological issues, factors. The creature organism must finish minimum asexual vegetative development beforehand. Biological issues, cues, rouse creation of microorganisms, spores and gametes. This raises an important question. How do plants know when the time is right, and what external cues trigger these complex internal processes?
Okay, let's move into plant systematics, organizing the green world. The science of identification, documentation, development, evolution, and organization, arrangement into groups.
Right. In strict intelligence, plant classification is the discipline of identification categorizing. Manuscript, or often practice, uses classification systematics interchangeably. Mecus procedure, or simplest system, is founded on essential use, edible, venomous, therapeutic, psychedelic groups. Systematics is the science that discoveries, classifies, labels, categorizes, designations, names, florae, a chief twig branch of classification, taxonomy. The antiquity of vegetable methodical plant systematics goes from Greek effort to contemporary evolutionary environmentalists, biologists. Field originated gradually. Early vegetable lore preserved as portion of medication education. What's fascinating is that the human need to categorize plants goes back millennia, driven by practical needs, evolving into a rigorous science.
Who are some key figures in the early history?
Theophrastus, Greek biologist, Aristotle scholar, had the original known official organization. Designated secret, classified, 500 classes into basils, herbs, below bushes, subshrubs, bushes, shrubs, plant stress. Stared, regarded as father botany, effect lengthy through Middle Ages. Roman biologists, Pliny the Elder and Dioscorides, labeled therapeutic florae. Dioscorides' material media, Criteria medica, was the standard medicinal reference for 1500 years. Middle Ages, slight new vegetal information added, blind devotion to Greek-Roman masterpieces, Renaissance revival, renewed interest in discipline. Creation of production media, printing press, 15th period, easier to shape vegetal objects, disseminate botanical info. Herbals, opulently exemplified records distributed mainly by therapeutic florae, focusing on documentation, group, groundwork preparation. Age of herbals, 15th, 17th periods. Worldwide examination, European exploration. Detections of thousands of novel vegetable class. More than 1,000 of plants presented to Europe in 100 years than in preceding 2,000 years. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the history of plant classification mirrors broader scientific inquiry. Stagnation, rebirth, explosive discovery.
So taxonomy hierarchy now uses modern phylogenetic methods.
Yes. Taxonomic groups, suitably collection, or group connected creatures. Linnaeus used in a false artificial scheme. Today, experts use a phylogenetic scheme. Phylogenetic scheme data sources. Morphology, arrangement, anatomy, cell construction, biochemistry, heredities, genetics, relic best fossils. Used to control an evolutionary usual natural collections, groups. Higher taxa, classes species with several communal features congregated into type, genera. Idea of type, genus, industrialized, developed in informal linguistic language, oak, maple, lily. reflects usual natural relations based on communal asexual vegetative generative physiognomies characteristics. Many technical designations of types genera straight occupied from antique Greek Roman shared common designations. Names. What's fascinating is the shift from simple visual grouping to complex analysis of evolutionary relationships, using everything from DNA to fossils.
And the naming system, binomial nomenclature, is key for standardization.
Absolutely. Humblest equal or basic level of technical organization. Each herbal plant has two parts. Generic, genus name, collective name for a collection of flora. Group of creatures that share comparable fonts, features, preferably from one shared forebear, ancestor. Specific name or epithet allows differentiation between diverse creatures inside a genus. Together, these dual names form the binomial. Rules for binomial designations. Continuously printed by general term first. Preliminary through occurrency communication. Capital letter at G. Grevele. Exact description, specific epithet. Continuously shadows general name. Preliminary through a lowercase letter. For example, Victoria. Full class designation binomial. Grevele Victoria. The standardized system is critical for scientists worldwide to communicate precisely, avoiding confusion from common names.
So what's the full classification letter, the hierarchical system?
Ordering of plants results in a prearranged scheme for identification classification of upcoming examples, new discoveries. It reproduces technical concepts about interrelationships among flora. Rules references for official vegetal terminology nomenclature are ruled by the International Code of Nomenclature for Algae, Mushrooms, Fungi, and Flora plants, ICN. Insertion of recognized plants into collections groups demonstrates association, relationships. Scientific organization shadows a scheme of instructions that regulates consequences, outcomes, and collections consecutive groups into a ladder, hierarchy. Example, lilies, 1, kingdom 2, phylum 3, class 4, series, order 5, family 6, genus 7, species. This raises an important question. How does continually refining this hierarchy lead to new insights about evolutionary history and biodiversity?
Let's delve into some specific ranks with examples. The plant kingdom, plantae.
Plant kingdom or plantae. Almost all additional alive beings contingent on flora to endure or survive. Photosynthesis. Flora change vigor from sunshine into nourishment stowed as starches. Faunae cannot get vigor straight from sun, must bother consume flora or other animals that ate flora. Flora too deliver oxygen persons faunae respire, use CO2, relief or release oxygen. Originated on land, in lodes, swamps, fresh water, on Earth for millions of existence years, quantity around 260,000 classes species presently. 3 structures differentiate flora after animals. 1, have chlorophyll. 2, cell ramparts completed robust through cellulose. 3, secure and unique residence. They don't move.
Phylum. This is a very broad rank.
Yes. Phylum. Breeding biosphere varied. Lots of species exposed. Millions yet to be found. Pre-ranged method needed for investigation material. Study organization. Live belongings gathered rendering to comparable physiognomies. Physical, social behavioral, hereditary genetic. One of 8 main groups for relations. Area domain, phylum, family, class, kingdom, order, genus, species. Note. Order of listing differs from common hierarchy as per source. Aristotle, one of first to categorize creatures. Samples of phylum. Source uses animal examples to illustrate. Chordata. Comprises all vertebrate faunae, and twosome, a couple of invertebrate ones, have convinced constructions, certain structures, sometimes only during beginning phase. Arthropoda, main physical, largest animal, phylum, comprises bugs, crabs, lobsters, spiders, scorpions. Suppose 1 billion categories of bugs unaided, alone, many undiscovered. What's fascinating here is how broad categories like phylum help grasp the sheer scale of diversity, illustrating classification principles.
And classes of plants.
Classes of plants. Botanists categorize flora into collections with comparable features. Plants inside a group are more carefully connected to other memberships of own collection than others. 6 major plant groups listed. 1, angiosperms, flowering plants. 2, gymnosperms, plants with unclosed seeds. 3, horsetails 4, ferns 5, bryophytes 6, green algae.
Series of plants, meaning orders. The source mentions time-lapse.
Yes, series of plants, orders. The source mentions using time-lapse orders, sequences, lengthily to provide visions, insights. Shrubberies live on dissimilar time ruler, life compound amazing, mostly imperceptible unless proceedings exposed inside instance. Makes usage of virtually no processor cartoon. Likely refers to a documentary using minimal CGI. Sequence also deliberates mushrooms, though notes they don't fit to empire or flora. This observation about plants operating on a different time ruler beautifully illustrates why detailed botanical study is crucial. It reveals hidden complexities.
What about some major plant families?
Plant family. Examples of major plant families. Asteraceae. Sunflowers, daisies, dandelions, 20,000 other flora, massive family, fabaceae, peas, calmest, easiest relations to identify mutual common weeds in North Hemisphere. Nitrogen repair, significant for farming for hundreds of years. Apiaceae bribes, carrots, origins of an herb family. Informal, easy to identify by characteristic umbel like solarate stem, flower structure. Orchidaceae, 30,000 classes, numerous refined diversities. Shared ornamentals, impressive monocots. Liliaceae, lilies, informal to recognize. Easter lilies, tiger lilies, daffodils.
And finally, species, the fundamental unit.
Species. Each generous kind of creature is known as a species. Instinctive description founded on morphological comparisons works, but incomplete. Experts assume biological foundation of a class's species. Biological species concept, Ernst Mayr, 1942. Class species, as collection of reproducing inhabitants reproductively inaccessible, isolated, from slightly supplementary any other such collection of populations. This raises an important question. How do we continue to refine our understanding of species with ongoing discoveries and evolutionary changes?
Let's circle back to seed and fruits, the next generation's package. Fruits contribute a momentous part of the world's farming construction. Some have vast monetary, social, representative senses, significance.
Right, and remember the three types of fruits. Modest, simple, collective, aggregate, numerous, multiple, simple fruits. Solitary fruit, one or more kernels. Seeds, plump, fleshy or thirsty, dry. Berry, red currant, gooseberry, tomato, is a self-same decent case. Very good example of a solitary fruit. Combined aggregate fruits, initiated from solitary composite florae, single flower, which covers numerous berries, carpels, fruitlets. Blackberries are a respectable specimen. Manifold multiple fruits, invented from manifold florae, multiple flowers with friendly fused berries. Ovaries, pineapple, fig, mulberry, osage orange, breadfruit. Pericarp, normally comestible slice, edible part of fruit. Ovary has three films, layers. Exocarp, skin. Mesocarp, plump and central sheet. Endocarp, deepest layer, environs kernel seeds. What's fascinating here is how fruit botanically is broader than our culinary use.
And kernels or seeds contained within grow in angiosperms and gymnosperms?
Angiosperm pits, seeds. Invented, formed, from a solid or ample construction fruit which encircles the pits. Surrounded seeds, gymnosperms. No precise organic assembly industrialized, developed to unfold kernels, unclothed seeds. Development. Afterwards, cross-fertilization, ovule of florae matures into kernel seed. Two integuments of ovule convert into two kernel spurs, seed coats. External kernel fleece, testa, internal kernel angora, tegmen. Some kernels include lone, unique, only one kernel fur, seed coat. Stem stalk of kernel progressive, developed from funicle of florae. Nucellus usually exists in second-hand waitful exclusively, used up completely, but persist as tinny sheet in some kernels. Importance. Most kernels are comestible and painstaking, considered as principal nutriments. Main imitation portion, reproductive part, of herbal plant. Geographically self-same, abundant, imperative. Very important globally. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the evolution of seed and fruit was a revolutionary advance in plant reproduction.
Can you clarify the distinct roles and alteration or differences between fruit and seed?
Sure. Organic fragment of the herbal plant part. Berry, fruit, adapts hooked into pod, develops into fruit after pollination. Ovule adapts hooked into kernel seed after fertilization. Construction. Berry is chief portion of peak herbal flowering plant that creates after detailed materials of bud, flower fertilization. Comestible outside coating of ovary, pericarp, pericarp. Some commercially available ovaries, fruits prepare and not have stones, seeds, originally like papayas, crazy like bananas, pineapples. Pericarp layers, epicarp, mesocarp, endocarp. Kernel seed is made of an embryo and a kernel fleece, seed coat, external coating, fruit's external coat, exocarp, kernel's external coat, testa, character and purposes. Ovary fruit production, active part in kernel dispersion, enticing fawn animals. Kernels, seeds, have vigorous character in imitation reproduction of gymnospermangiosperm florae, imperative for nourishment of beginning embryo. Vigorous, important to dispersion to novel place, and defensive plant or expression survival through disapproving adverse situations.
So reproduction is the seed's job, not the fruit's.
Correct. Replica, reproduction. Berry fruit. Fixes not signify imitation elements, is not the reproductive unit. Kernels, seeds, fundamentally are second-hand aimed at mock, used for reproduction. The produce of sensual imitation, sexual reproduction. Kernels can sprout. During kernel sprout, and kernel develops into plantlet, maturing development. Berries, fruits experience growing progression, ripening. Herbal hormone ethylene details seasoning causes ripening. Pebbles, seeds, prepare not feel a seasoning course, do not ripen. Classifications. Berries, fruits include simple fleshy ovaries, collective capsules, numerous pods using the broad types described before. Pits, seeds, classified based on morphology of embryo, total of endosperm, position of seed qualified toward endosperm.
What about their uses and shelf life?
Usages. Berry fruit usage, overweight fleshy, ovaries eaten renewed fresh. Used for gridlocks, jams, conserve, salad groundwork. Making nutriments. Foods like cookies, muffins, yogurt, frost balmies, cream bars, brews, juices, intoxicating brews like berry beer, lavender wine, brandy, apples for vinegar, skill flaff, pus enhancer, flavor ingredient. Stone, seed usage. Cornflakes, cereals, beans, nutty, nuts meant as bubble-heated main regime, cooked staple food. Crop cookery greases, oils, crop thickener cover, starch, sprouted sprouts for salad sauce, shelf life, ovaries, fruits, tall quantity of wetness, stumpy low-ledge lifespan, kernels, seeds, squat total of dampness, reasonably in height, high sill lifespan, kernel vessels, harvest produces novel vegetable short of without ovary fruit, pod, fruit cannot harvest newfangled vegetable deprived of kernel, seeds. Remnants typically voluntary to fact that beginning is invented, privileged. The kernel embryo is inside the seed. Both berry and kernel remain world's extra preferred nourishments, greatest vital foundation of nutrients. Stones created privileged the berries. Typical seed includes dual straightforward portions: kernel embryo, kernel fleece, seed coat. Endosperm hoard nutrients aimed at beginning in most flora. This raises an important question. How have humans co-evolved with fruits and seeds, shaping their forms through cultivation?
Okay, final section. Utilization of mineral nutrition and food, the plant's sustenance and transport system. How do plants get what they need and distribute it? Plants' revenue and mixtures, take in substances like CO2 via verdure sleeves, captivate other resources, nitrogen, phosphorus, from soil via roots.
If the reserve, or distance, between pedigrees, roots, and leaves is small, nourishment resources conveyed by dispersal diffusion. But reserves, distances often great in high trees, so need decent conveyance scheme. Transport system. Yeah. Plants don't change considerably, move much. Many deceased booths, dead cells in materials, tissues, so don't essentially need much energy for transport. Conveyance scheme simpler than creatures, animals, contains tube-like ways comprehensive of vascular tissue. Two kinds. Xylem, phloem. Vascular scheme spreads from origins, roots, through stem to plants, leaves. In leaves seen as decoration pattern of veins. Xylem tubes transmit water minerals roots up. Phloem conveyances, manufactured food from greeneries to rest of plant frame, body. Translocation, conveyance of water, nutrients, other materials from one portion of vegetable to additional. Average of conveyance medium of transport in flora is water. What's fascinating is how plants, despite being rooted, develop this remarkable internal transportation network.
So transport of water and minerals, how does that upward movement work again?
Xylem tissue conveyances water minerals. Consistent made of containers, nestles, and tracheids into incessant leading tubes, continuous conducting tubes. Widening, extending from origins, roots, to greeneries, leaves. Transmit to all portions. Water absorption. Plants engross water from soil via root. Root locks, hairs are unicellular, thin-walled extensions of epiblema, skin of root. In nearby interaction with reedy movie of aquatic, thin film of water, nearby soil atoms, particles. Ascent of sap, conveyance of water-melted mineral salts from roots to plants. Leaves, cell wall of root hair. Penetrable to water reserves, nutrients. Booth skin membrane about vacuole, cell membrane endoplast. Half-penetrable membranes, selectively permeable. Root coat booths, cortical cells, revenue up mineral ions via lively conveyance, active transport. Creates attentiveness change, concentration gradient between root hair. Soil key, water, has advanced water gratified higher potential than cubical fluid of origin hair, root hair cell sap. Hence water disperses into root hair. Root hair cupicles develop boring, become turgid. Cortical cupicles have inferior water gratified, lower potential. Water disperses from source hairs into cortical cubicles. Transitory through cortical cells via osmosis, aquatic water spreads endodermis. Endodermis militaries, forces, water hooked into xylem tubes via passage cells. Root weight pressure with which water is lacking, pushed into xylem tubes of root. Upholds water pillar to sure stature, certain height. In high plant trees, slight parting conveying water. Sluggish procedure, cannot make up for aquatic loss during transpiration. It's really interesting. The journey of water up a tall tree powered by root pressure and transpiration pull.
And the transport of food made in the leaves, downwards and sideways.
Yes. Transport of food and other substances. Food manufacturing in greeneries, leaves, translocated up, down, crosswise to all shares via phloem. Phloem also behaviors, conducts additional materials, amino acids. Leading cells of phloem, tubular cubicles, sieve, host tubes, with filter-like dividers, filter sieve dishes plates at ends, incessant pillar, continuous column, from greeneries to other shares formed by filter conduits one overhead the other. Besides filter pipes, phloem has companion cubicles and phloem parenchyma. Sucrose, key form of starch, sugar, translocated. Translocation mechanism. Sucrose translocation into phloem flesh, tissue, happens with spending of energy, active loading. When sucrose manufactured in greenery cells, osmotic weight, pressures up surges. Aquatic water from nearby is cells involuntary to movement, drawn into foliage cubicles by osmosis. Reason sucrose to be translocated from mixture point, source to reception, sink, as explanation solution flow. Reliance on plant obligation, need. For sample, peak season, asexual vegetative action additional at plant top, sugar in greeneries readily spent. Aim for sugar translocation to buds from storing areas, root, stem, during mechanism growth. Excess food related to packing areas when asexual activity is summary low. This raises an important question. How does the plant decide where to send resources? Adapting distribution based on need.
And plant nutrients beyond water, light, CO2, macronutrients and micronutrients.
Yes, main source of nourishment is CO2 into unassuming sugar via sun's vigor. Photosynthesis. CO2 arrives via stomata. O2, photosynthesis product, also changes via holes, used in cellular inhalation to statement vigor, release energy, from biochemical promises, bonds, in sugar to provision development preservation. CO2 live vigor, not satisfactory for mixture, synthesis of all particles. Plants necessitate mineral nutrients, macronutrients, needed in comparatively great quantities, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen found in all biological complexes, nitrogen for amino acids, potassium, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium center of chlorophyll molecule, sulfur. Micronutrients, compulsory and suggestion amounts required in trace amounts. Think of plants as incredibly precise chemists assembling complex molecules from simple raw materials.
And soil and cultivation practices affect this.
Definitely. Soil. Tremendously worn outside coating of Earth's crust. Calm, composed of mixture of voters, sand, supports rocks, clay, deposits silt, humus, other inorganic biological substance. Whole spaces covering water air amid atoms, particles. Inorganic portion differs based on rock structure. Most elements mutual, found as mineral mixtures, reserves. Most pillars, soils, contain numerous dissimilar reserves. Full of bacteria that disruption depressed and reprocesses biological fragments. Cultivation. Natural societies. Nutrients recycled, made obtainable incessantly. Sophisticated yields relieve groups. Intensive agriculture disrupts ecosystems. National changes radically. Soil bearer to corrosion nutrient damage. Refined crops patch flora. Cultivated plants typically necessity be complete, supplemented through extra inorganic nutrients, fertilizers. Solution. Harvest revolution, crop rotation. Agriculturalists might produce corn one year, soybeans next. Crops eliminate nutrients but consume dissimilar nutritious supplies, so soil doesn't lose same nutrients 2 ages in a row. Soybean plants add nitrogen complexes to soil, nitrogen-fixing microorganisms and nodes on roots. This demonstrates the delicate balance between natural processes and human agriculture, and how understanding plant nutrition helps sustainable food production.
And some plants have fascinating nutritional adaptations for tough environments. Carnivorous plants.
Exactly. Nutritional adaptations. Carnivorous plants attain nitrogen directly from other creatures, often grow in sharp soils, acidic soils like swamps, that absence animal nitrogen. By seizing processing, unimportant faunae, small animals, get passable nitrogen provisions. Adapted leaves to decoy trick bugs animal. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Plants need ammonia, NH3 for amino acids, but most nitrogen in atmosphere is N2. Plants absence biological trails, nitrogenase enzyme, to change vaporous nitrogen to ammonia. Microorganisms can do this. Some live in close connotation with roots of flora, others contained in plant materials, nodes, e.g. peas, legumes. Exact credit obligatory, specific recognition required, by microorganisms classes and its host. Introducing bacteria budgets, shrub and standings of energy. Cost plant energy, but worth it if little ammonia in soil. Energy preservation instrument in legumes. Root tresses, hairs, won't respond to bacteriological indications when nitrogen heights are extraordinary. Mycorrhizae, mushrooms, fungi. Synergetic relations in 90% of vascular flora. Important role in ornamental enhancing phosphorus transmission to plant. Approval uptake of some micronutrients also improved. If we connect this to the bigger picture, these incredible adaptations are prime examples of coevolution, forming symbiotic relationships to thrive in impossible conditions. What other hidden partnerships exist?
So what does this all mean? From the microscopic machinery of a single cell to the vast global impact of plant biodiversity, We've truly taken a deep dive into the life of plants. It's been quite a journey.
It really has. Understanding these incredible mechanisms, from their ability to create the oxygen we breathe to their complex internal signaling, it just reinforces how central plants are to, well, pretty much everything, every breath we take, every bite we eat.
As you look at any plant around you now, whether it's a mighty tree or just a tiny blade of grass, consider this. What more will we discover about their silent, complex world that could fundamentally change our own understanding of life itself?
Mm-hmm. There's always more to learn, definitely.
Yeah.
And seeing the world through the lens of botany, it just reveals a richness and complexity that is truly, truly awe-inspiring.